Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. We've got a full house. We've got a back four of myself, Chris McElwain, Jim Orr, and Brian Degnan. Jim, he's the old head, the Franco Baresi of the back four. I think you're laughing already. I haven't even got to you guys. And I'm not even going to do it because I may upset you. And I don't want to do that to anybody. Right? I was going to call one of you Maldini. I don't want to do that to anyone today because it's, I think...
Too late.
I called you Franco Baresi. One of the finest defenders in the history of football, Jim.
Okay.
OG.
Right. Okay.
OG.
All right.
Yeah, nice and positive. The first thing I'm going to do is welcome Chris back. Chris, don't sit still too often, right? Because then I think somebody's frozen. I'm going to welcome you back from your little break. Obviously, I heard last night that you were on a plane. You managed to somehow find some way of getting Wi-Fi. You watched the game with interest. And I think last night there was a lot of... I don't know. There was a lot of emotion going into it because you're thinking to yourself, this, it's a Europa League game, but it's a big game in the great scheme of things, Chris, because I'm all about momentum and the confidence and the bounce and all this kind of stuff. And I think we got that from last night. What was your take on the game, the performance overall?
Yeah, first of all, great to be back. I've certainly missed you guys, although as many in the comments will testify, I have managed to tune in. Even at sea, I was able to tune into Acsom. I got my Acsom fix. It was great to do that. Did you just mute me?
Accidentally. Listen, you've blocked people in the comment section in the past.
For 2 minutes.
We didn't want to hear about you looking all windswept and interested on the side of a ship.
But it was amazing last night. I was on the plane from flew into London, then flew up from London to Glasgow. Managed to avoid the storms. So we're only slightly delayed.
Did you jet in?
I jetted in, and the worst thing for me is the delay meant that I would be flying right when the football was on, right when the match was on, so I was gutted. But I found out BA's got this little feature that you pay a £5, you can get Wi-Fi for streaming on the plane. So I thought, right, brilliant, crack it. What they don't tell you is that only happens when the plane's at a level, kind of cruising height. So if you're ascending, i.e. taking off, or if you're descending, coming down, they cut you off. So I'm sitting there, I'm on the plane, this is great, got it right on for the start of the match, I'm watching it, we're playing well, we lose a goal, but I'm thinking I'm really enjoying the match. And then the pilot says, right, we're starting the descent into Scotland, and it cuts off. And, on a quiet plane at 9 o'clock at night, I'm the only guy going, no!
So it switches into Celtic Park Wi-Fi mode. Is that what happened?
Pretty much. But I did then manage to reconnect once I got to the airport, and I managed to see our goals, which was good. But yeah, my impressions of the game, certainly when you're coming off the back of the previous game, where I thought it was possibly one of our worst performances collectively. I thought there was a much better level of energy in the team. I thought certain players stood up. I think there was still concerns, particularly in that first period, maybe players not doing enough work in the defensive sense, and I'm pointing to players like Rio Hatate, for example. I think was pretty culpable for their goal, which was magnificent. But I think there's still more we could have done to prevent that. But what I liked was the application of players like Callum McGregor. I thought Nygren started to show again that intelligence in his movement as well. He seems to be a player who finds himself in good positions, even if a little bit wasteful at times in front of goal. I still think there's a real player in Tenekte. I think he's often marked out of games for a reason, because I think he is a player who has got that initiative within him to go and take players on. And I've got to say, big shout out to big Scaldino. Liam Scales, he's a man that it only takes a mistake or two, a couple of wee errors in his performance, and people are right on his back. And I think you've got to balance it out by saying when he has a good game like he did last night. I mean, certainly second half anyway, and he pops up with a goal. I mean, take the credit. I thought he was great last night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to bring up the comments. I'm just going to let everybody see something. There's a new feature on StreamYard, and I don't know how safe it is. It might be quite safe today, because I doubt there's going to be any trolls on today. But eventually, we will be able to look at live comments flipping up, and we'll need to move Brian's position so we can see his gorgeousness, if you need to move his seat. It can also be quite a scary and dangerous feature, because obviously when you see sometimes how the comments go, but today's quite a good day, and I'm really keen to bring in some of these comments. First thing I would say, Ian Roy, best fans in the world, yeah, but only when we're winning. The last few weeks, the club and players were being berated. All I would say to that, Ian, is we cannot live in a world where, and I'm going to touch on Brendan Rodgers' post-match comments, David Martindale's post-match comments a couple of weeks ago. We can't live in a world where footballers and managers do not get criticism from fans. I mean, we've never lived in that world. Why now? I just feel that it's because there's more amplification by having smartphones in your pocket, social media and channels like this, that it's much more widespread. Your opinion is heard and seen by far more people. But you still have an opinion as a football fan, Jim. I mean, we still berated players. Davy Moyes wasn't a favourite of the Celtic support. Peter Grant and Tom Rogan. And by the way, I'm not saying it's okay to single out one player and hit him for personal abuse. That's unacceptable. Criticism because of performances, absolutely. And when we talk about every nuance of Celtic every single day, every weekday on Acsom, every single game, we can't just sit here and go, let's not criticise a single element of the play when you've been pumped 2-0 from Dundee at Dens Park. I think we need to get over that. And it's bleeding into the mentality of managers when they're coming out and say, the podcasters and the YouTube. Yeah, they're called football fans. They're called football fans with an opinion. What's the issue with that, Jim?
I just think the phrase best fans in the world is such a stupid phrase. Nobody thinks we're the best fans in the world. I've said that before, but if you support Motherwell or St Johnstone or St Mirren, you turn up week after week after week knowing you're not going to win anything. Are they the best fans in the world? So it's such a stupid statement to make. That's number one. Number two
not a stupid statement to make by Ian Roy, just that particular statement.
The best fans in the world, it has no meaning. It means nothing. I think what happened after Sunday, a lot of people hit the hysteria button, basically, that I think if we'd have won last Sunday, and we've not been great this season, we're not scoring many goals, there's lots of things you can look at which have not been too clever. I totally get that. But if we'd have beat Dundee last Sunday, then the hysteria button wouldn't have been hit. And Brendan with his Honda Civic comment, which was a bit odd coming out as well. And I think that's set a lot of hairs running, basically, in the past few days. And I think last night, I thought we played pretty well. Thought they were very similar to Braga. I think if Iheanacho, his goal had accounted last time, we had the same result last night. I would have won the game 2 weeks ago. Came back well, good to win the game, puts us back in it. I've said on the podcast before, I'm not saying this season, but a team of our resources should be going pretty deep in this Europa League. And who knows, last night might be the start of something. So, yeah, lots of encouraging things from last night. As Chris said, some good individual performances, Scales, Engels, Nygren, Kalmak, etc. I'm excited about this season. And I think that... and it's good that Hearts have made the start that they've made. That makes it exciting. Because one of the things I've said before is the fact that still love football, here it's become. And for me, it's lost excitement. It's totally lost excitement. There's only very few games you get excited with. The Motherwell game the other week was dead exciting because we didn't play particularly well. We go 2-1 down and have to come back and win the game. That's dead exciting. Sunday will be dead exciting. Even if we lose and we go 8 points behind, it's still dead exciting. We've got a long, long way to go this season. And people talking about I take a point on Sunday. We're not playing Barcelona. We're playing Hearts. And Hearts have done really well. And hats off to Hearts for how good that they've started. But, if we're 5 points behind with 3 games to go, I might be concerned. There's 30 games to go. So I think we need to kind of calm down on this. The bookies I've got is 3-1 on favourites. So that's not been disrespectful for anyone, because I said on Sports Sound, and Mrs. the other week that do you see a challenge?
It's been mentioned once or twice in the comments, Jim.
Do I see a challenge from Hearts? And I said, no. Oh, you've been flippant, you've been this and that. The bookies don't see a challenge from. I hope Hearts push it to the last day. I hope we'll win the league in the last day of the season. That would be dead exciting. That would be brilliant. And I don't discount our friends across the river, because I think, as I said before, I think there's not much between us and them. We've just managed to get points when they haven't. They've got a new manager, they'll get a bounce from that. It would be dead exciting to get into the new year and it's going to be a 3-horse race. That would be exciting. So you have to figure out what you want from football. For me, it's excitement. I don't want us to win the league, but I want us to win the league. Number one. But to win it by 20, 25 points, is that exciting? No, really.
You know this, Jim. This is why we call you Baresi. You never panic. You're just sitting at the back, sweeping up, spraying balls. You are Franco. I think it's interesting because you're a chess player yourself, Jim. And modern football has become a game of chess. Everybody try to outthink you before you go on the park. There's no chaos. There's no jeopardy. And I've said this before. I'm going to use the English game as an example. I used to be excited from the English. Even when Sky came in, initially there was an excitement to the game. Monday Night Football. I did like it, but it's all just tailed off to this game of chess. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that, Jim. In relation to the challenge, I think we do have. I do. I think I've got a chance. And I'm going to qualify that by saying over the last few seasons, I'm going to say at least 3 or 4 seasons, I've been saying teams like Hearts and Hibs and Aberdeen and Dundee United need to get their act together. It shouldn't always be about, are Rangers going to get the right manager? Are they going to sign the right players? Are they going to mount a challenge? I look at the capital clubs, Brian, and I've done this for a long time. And then I look at Dundee United and Aberdeen because growing up, they were prominent in the Scottish game in the 80s. And I think to myself, well, you're never going to get a situation where a Jim McLean and Alex Ferguson drop into Aberdeen and Dundee and manage to have this revolution up there, the new firm. That's not going to happen again. But they should definitely be doing better. So I just think Hearts are doing what they should be doing, Brian. I know that when you bring the data analysis into in Jamestown and Tony Bloom and all that, it adds a little kind of bit of veneer of class and a bit of mystique about it. But I just think they are doing what they should be doing, Brian. They should be beating most of the teams in Scotland. And that's what they're doing this season.
Well, what's really interesting, actually, I remember I hadn't long joined the podcast, so I think Ange had just been appointed.
There's the Ange Clarkson. There it is. There's going to be many more mentions of the big man.
I know, yeah, especially over the next season. And we were talking about, I think it was the Hibs manager at the time, someone was complaining about the resources or complaining about something in football. And I said at the time, I went, if these clubs had a strategy, they could bridge that gap. Because, yeah, Celtic and Rangers at the time had a bigger budget than everyone else, but the gap isn't insurmountable if the strategy's right. And then I used that to say, and on that note, we need to get a strategy because we can't judge anybody else because we overperform given our budget. The reason I reference that is because I think you're right. And I think what's interesting with Hearts is obviously they've got the Jamestown analytics coming in and they've got a strategy. So they've got a way they're going to play, the type of players that fit it, and they're prepared to sell them and get someone else lined up. Now, say they beat us on Sunday, you have to say, right, okay, we're in a real fight here. Do I think they win the league this year? No. But I did say at the start of the year, not picturing the collapse across the road, that I think they would finish second. And I do think it's good for Scottish football. I'm slightly different from Jim in that I want to see Celtic play well and win. I don't care how much we win by or how much we don't. So if it's 20 points ahead, brilliant. If it's 1 point ahead, brilliant. I get the excitement, but I just want us to play well and win. But excitement's such a key word. And getting back to the commenter saying about the best fans in the world stuff. People often say the fans need to do more. I mean, they're not happy with the team, blah, blah, blah. It's the team's job to get the fans on their feet. It's their job to go out, to entertain, to play, to justify wearing that jersey that we would all die or kill for. So fans can react how they want. Do I like when they boo at half time? No, I don't think it's helpful personally. But is it my place to tell people they can't do it? Or this is how they should behave? Or this is how they should support the team? No, it's nonsense. It's incumbent on the players and incumbent on the management to play a style of football and get the results that are befitting of Celtic, in my view. So I always think it's a cheap sort of get out to sort of go, well, the fans are distracted us. And I know that's not what Liam Scale said, by the way, but the fans are, this is a distraction, or that's a distraction, or no buying a t-shirt means we're going to get beat after Dundee. Like, these things are all, the basic is, the players on the park, regardless of what everything else is going on, and the manager that's coaching them should be producing exciting football and should be beating everyone in Scotland. Now, you're going to get times where that doesn't happen, fair enough. But the reason I've been quite negative about this season, and about Brendan Rodgers as well, is because there's certain prerequisites that everyone should have as footballers, but certainly Celtic players. You've got to run hard, you've got to fight hard, and you've got to try hard. and I've not seen much of that this season. And that's what riles me. The results I can sort of accept. Like last night, Stoomgrats were bang average for me. I'm glad we won, and I thought it was a really good mentality shift. So that was really positive. But that was a bang average team. We should have battered them. But we're relieved because we won. However, say we'd have lost, right? You could almost go, well, do you know what? What an absolute blinding strike that boy scored. If you're going to lose a game, that's how you lose. If we fought really hard, if Negrin never get the goal, if we never made that breakthrough, you can sort of go, well, we fought for it. We were challenging, fighting for every ball. It just wasn't your night. You can always take that. But what I can't accept is lethargy, lack of performance, lack of effort, and going through the motions, whether it's Brendan Rodgers, whether it's the players. So that's where I think it's unfair to sort of focus on the fans and say, you're not doing your part. Well, let's get the relationship right here. Let's let's not about who's entitled and who wants what and who's been spoiled and who hasn't. That's irrelevant. You play that jersey, you wear that and you go in that park, you should feel like a giant, you should feel 10 foot tall and you should play like it. That should be it. Everything else will come off the back of that.
You know this, Brian. No, but I just think there's been such a focus recently, and I don't know if it's because of the advent of people having a voice, that, it's almost like, greatest fans in the world, it's great to have a voice, but don't have too much of an opinion. Let's keep you in your box. And I've heard it coming out quite a bit. Martindale the other week, I thought, was just talking nonsense. Brendan Rodgers, I think, was more talking about the pundits, but pundits also have an opinion. They have a voice and they've got a job in journalism. And as long as they're not churning out clickbait nonsense, then allow them to have that opinion. Allow fans to have that opinion as well. My opinion on last night, I don't disagree with you, Brian, but I think we did batter them. It's just the scoreline didn't reflect it. And we'll talk about that lack of quality up top as well. One concern, we'll get the negativity out the road here, Chris. One concern is the injuries, isn't it? Because you go into that game and you could go deeper into this and say, right, Ian Atchell gets injured, but the bigger concern is we don't have the quality to back up Ian Atchell going into Tynecastle. We're all kind of praying and hoping that Maeder's fit now. But it's just one of these things that's so unfortunate. You then look at AJ getting brought out from cold storage, and you just know as soon as he does that motion when he's just opening up that it's a ping. Something's pinged in his leg. And then one of the most disappointing ones, I think, was CCV, because it was self-inflicted, but also I think the rule's a bit unfair when the changes you make are forced. So we couldn't make another change. So CCV apparently was struggling for the last 10 minutes of the game. Yeah. We couldn't take him off. It's easy with hindsight to say maybe we should have made a double substitution when Tunecki came off 78 minutes in, but we didn't know CCV was struggling at that point. It seems a wee bit unfair when the first two changes were forced. The 3 phases of the game that you can make the changes in.
But I mean, I guess the way you look at it is it could happen to any team, right? It wasn't, it's just the unfortunate circumstances we had. Yeah, I mean, as soon as I logged in and managed to get the match, first thing I saw was Ian Atchell going down. I thought, oh no, because that's a position we've got real problems in. No Maeda to come in or to shift into that position. So you're looking at the bench. You see Johnny Kenny. Johnny Kenny got a new deal recently, but I've not seen enough from Johnny Kenny to have confidence that he's going to come in and be the game changer. Thought he showed good effort, good application last night, but again, no goals for your striker. That's a concern. I didn't look at the bench and think, oh, we've got requisite quality to come onto that position. AJ, every time a player comes back from an injury, that's lasted over a course of weeks or months, the first time they get touched or you see something like that, you automatically think the worst. And from what I've heard, it could be a substantial period out, and that's a big loss on that side. I thought that the one positive, if you can turn it on to that, is that young Colby Donovan again comes in, and for me looks very capable there. I think the kid will never have a better opportunity. I think this is now the time where the manager should decide, can he show faith in Colby Donovan and allow his development to continue? Because I think the boy's got it, and I think he's shown it in his appearances so far. So that cushions the AJ blow ever so slightly, that we do have somebody stepping up from the youth who's starting to look first team capable for me. But lot of onus on him to go and prove that he deserves that place. The CCV one, yeah, it's unfortunate. you remember back in the days when we could only make 3 substitutes, you know, so you imagine the situation we might have been in.
Jim remembers it when we didn't have subs.
Exactly, yeah.
Luxury, lad, luxury, subs.
But yeah, it really is unfortunate, and I think that the worst thing as a fan is CCV is a player that you look at and you think he's someone whose fitness we need to manage. You know, he's had niggling injuries, he's had recurring injuries. And I think the fact that he had to stay on, you're worrying, is he just making that injury worse, you know, by continuing to play? It's a real worry, because there's been a stalwart. Again, I think if you try and cushion that blow a little bit, I think, you know, we've seen Scales step up in quality defensively this season. I think for me, now looks very established first teamer. We know Trusty's kind of been chomping at the bit to come back. You've seen Scales and Trusty play well together. So I do feel that that's a position where we've got cover. My biggest concern is up top at the moment.
Yeah, I want to bring up some of the comments in relation to Kenny, because I don't want this to turn into a Kenny bashing session. I think what I would say, though, is that I've played 1 game at Celtic Park this season, and I lasted longer than Ian Atcho by about 8 seconds. But Kenny comes on, and actually in the first half, I felt that what Kenny did do was he showed all his qualities. What Kenny's good at: dropping deep, you know, haranguing the back line, getting scraps off of him where other strikers might not even chase it. And he created a couple of chances for himself. And I think that's what he's good at, you know, that bags of energy and absolutely a team player and all this kind of stuff. And I've just used this word so often, Jim. And I think if you don't have it, it's hard to get it. And it's quality. It's just having that quality. You know, there was a ball that came into the box. It was a tremendous pass by Engels. I will be flying the Engels flag today, by the way, guys. I've got so much stick over this player. He was brilliant last night. And he plays that really difficult ball to play, which is right in between the goalie and the last defender, Jim. And it's so dangerous in the 6-yard box, because the goalie doesn't want to commit in case he collides with his defender. Defender doesn't really want to commit in case he puts it in his own net. And all you need is a striker to just find that wee bit of quality. And that for me was the moment I was looking at Johnny, thinking to myself, you know, if that goes in, everything's different. Everything changes for the player, for our attitude towards the player, etc. I guess the big question is Tynecastle. You know, Ian Atcho, if it's a muscle injury, there's no way he's going to be back. Kenny seems to be the second choice, and I think that was due to the fact that Mader's not fit. But we do also have Yamada floating about the squad, not available last night, Jim, but maybe he's going to make the bench. What do we do about it at Tynecastle? Do you think Johnny Kenny might actually be quite a good asset with regards to his work rate?
Obviously, Johnny Kenny's not the answer, but he did cause them a bit of trouble last night. And yeah, there is a lack of quality there. Yes, and if he does score a goal, that maybe a bit of a game changer for him. But what annoys me about football players is that how they fail to execute their skills on the park. So there's that ball for Liam Scales that he played through to Johnny Kenny, and it kind of came over his shoulders. Yeah. He made a mess of it. And it's a bugbear of mine when I hear commentators say, well, that's a difficult ball to take. If he was passing the ball to me and I did that, fine, okay. That old bloke in his 60s, he found that a bit difficult there. But if you're a professional football player, you spend every single day of your life trying to hone your skills to be better, so that when that moment happens, you do control it and you get a shot away. And that annoys the hell out of me when I see footballers at the top level. They're not you and I. You know, these are meant to be high quality players. He's not that high quality player. And we know that. He knows that himself. And also the one where he did really well to dispossess a lad and went in on goal and he fired it just by the post. But when he dispossessed the lad, the keeper was miles off his line. You know, so a Larson or a Kyogo goes to chip him. Whereas Kenny kept his head down, didn't lift his head, kept his head down, had a shot and goal. In terms of Sunday, I think Maida's fit, Maida plays. Maida fit. If Maida's not fit, then Kenny plays. I don't think this is a game to bring in people from the cold who haven't had a sniff of things. And I think he did well enough last night, Kenny. He was unlucky. He had a few good turns. And as you said, Paul, that lack of quality is what's missing. But what you're looking for him, if he gets the goal off his backside or some lucky goal that kick-starts him, you never know. Because that's the beauty of football. You never know. 1 second changes everything.
It does, Jim. And, you know, we could peel back the layers because we try to look at the root of problems. The root of the problem here is that Kenny was lined up for a move to Bolton and we should have had another striker in, Brian. We could go on all day about recruitment and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, when Ian mentioned the comments earlier about the club being berated, the club, you know, I like to differentiate this. The club is Celtic. That's what we love. I never criticise Celtic. That's what we love. The board members, the guys in the recruitment department, they're the ones that were being berated and they should have got the deals done. Now, I want to touch on something as well, Brian. If you disagree with what Jim says, by the way, in relation to Kenny starting at Tynecastle, if made us unfit, let us know in the comments section. But much was said about the post-match comments when we start bringing in vehicles. And I've already put a ban on describing anybody within football as a Rolls Royce. That doesn't happen on Acsom, right? That's happened far too often. But we have fallen into the trap of using these references, of course, these metaphors, and has Brendan Rodgers finally taken Celtic's handbrake off, etc., etc., and there's loads of others. Brian, he came out after a game against Dundee, and I would have been livid as a manager. I think there's a way that, you know, there's a risk, I think, if you throw your players under a bus. Here's another vehicular one. You throw your players under that bus, right? It's a massive risk in football and in sport in general, Brian, because people switch off. It's all about, you know, tapping into the mentalities and all the rest of it. He was criticised for it. The comments he made about Honda Civics and Ferraris, he was questioned about it before the game, kind of backtracked a wee bit, but he got a response, didn't he? So, I mean, it's one of the ones I thought it was risky, but he did get a response.
Well, that's the thing. Rodgers is such an interesting character with his post matches, but because a few times in the past, I remember, I think it was one of the games against St Johnstone, I kind of beat her Drew, and he said it was the angriest he'd ever been, and he really went for the players. And again, it had the effect. So I think sometimes you can do that. But it's like if someone's mad all the time, someone's always shouting and bawling and kicking things and shouting, you start to not take them seriously because you go, oh, he's moaning again, just tell him to shut it. Whereas if somebody's quite cool and calm and anyone loses their rag, you go, right, all right, we've maybe overstepped here. I'm never a fan of it being done publicly, if I'm honest. I think if I'm a player, and maybe it's just my weak mentality, but if I'm a player and my manager does that publicly, I'm out. I just go, why should I respect that? If he kicks my head in privately and defends me publicly, I'll run through a wall for him, right? That's what, you know, the greats, Alex Ferguson used to say that. He would kick the players' heads in, hairdryer treatment, but he would always defend them. You know, questions, criticise players, would always bite back. So it's obviously worked, or we'll see how well it's worked at the weekend. So it's hard to criticise. The only thing I would say about the comments themselves is when he talks about the sort of the Honda, or you can't play like you can't drive a Honda like you would a Ferrari or whatever. It felt to me like it wasn't really the players as much he was having a go at. It was almost a, look, don't blame me for how the team's playing. If I had better players, it would look nice. But I've no, so I don't expect much. It was almost a sort of self-defence thing. And I've not got a lot of time for that, if I'm honest. I just, especially if you're a manager, you're sort of statesman figure at your club. I don't like it wasn't me, pal, it's their fault. It's like, look, just take it in the chin, go on with it, kick their heads in the dressing room and find a solution. You don't need to be making excuses. All that being said, last night reminded me of the game. So when he first came back, we weren't playing well, and again, and you'd be shocked to hear this, everyone listening, we had a disastrous transfer window that season. And that's when we had the sort of the 9-10 players that never played and get sold. And we went to Ibrox, and I think if memory serves, I think we had Welsh and Scales as a centre-half partnership. And everyone went, oh, this could be a sore one. And we won 1-0. Then after that sort of kicked on. Now, we didn't play fantastically that season, but we'd done enough. And Rangers were certainly more capable then than they are today. And last night reminded me of that. It felt like that moment of, right, okay, we were up against it here. Players are dropping like flies. We're behind. We've been playing poor, but they dug in. Guys like Scales, to Chris's point earlier, really dug in and brought them out. Engels, which I think we need to highlight because he's criticised, I think, unfairly quite a lot. Thought he was excellent. And it feels like it could be a turning point. That's why, to Jim's point, Sunday is very exciting because I'm keen to see not only how we play, what the result is, but how we react. If we keep that going now, if last night was a trigger to say, do you know what we are good enough here, Because actually, I thought Callum McGregor, I still don't think he was brilliant last night, but it's the best he's been this season. And he was actually covering, and he stopped pointing. He started just making the passes instead, which does my nothing. It's like me passing to Chris and telling me to pass to Jim instead of me just passing it to him. Gets my nerves. But he didn't do that last night. Credit where credit's due. So maybe his performance galvanised the team. Hatate fluttered in and out, but when he was good, he looked more like himself. So we'll see. So long answer to your question, but I think if we get a result on Sunday and the mentality's there, then Rodgers' criticism has worked. And I suspect it probably will.
You know this, I think with regards to that, you want it to give you a spring in momentum rather than it being a false dawn, right? Now, the Kenny chat is raging on the comments. I'll be bringing some of these up, actually. Engels, man of the match for me. Yes, absolutely, Ariel. He was brilliant last night. I think going into the game, I was talking about finding his best position. And I even suggested that, maybe McGregor's best position isn't a number 6, Brian, because he's not in a great season. And the argument around the amount of running that he would need to do as a number 8 further up the park, I don't know. He seems to do a hell of a lot of running as a number 6. So I'm not really sure, what the difference would be, or if it's a type of running. I'm not sure. But I did think that McGregor played his role much better last night, but the midfield as a whole did. First half, some slight concerns, Chris, about Hatate's retention. Lost the ball. First 2 things he did in the game was lose the ball. I think the first 20 minutes of the game, as a team, we weren't brilliant. But we actually started to turn it around in the first half. But the last 20, 25 minutes, we looked as though, wait a minute, we're on the front foot here. We realised, get the ball to Taneke, and he's on, he's in the mood. He's on form. And he was in the mood, and he did have, what I like about him is, even though people are doubling up on him, Chris, he fancies taking 2 guys on anyway. So yes. He's okay with that, right? So I thought he played pretty well, run himself into the ground, obviously. But in terms of the midfield unit, last season I felt that McGregor, Hatate and Engels was our best midfield. This season, I've been all over the place with our midfield, Chris, because nobody's seemed to have that forum that you're like, he's a first pick. Last night, it looked again like that was our best midfield. Again, let's hope it's not a false dawn, Chris, because it is a strong midfield if they're on form.
It is, and they've all got certain characteristics and traits that they bring to the team. And I think it's, each of them have got good options when they work. You've got Hatate, he's got that innovation. He's got the ability to play those defence splitting passes. He can sometimes do something spectacular from outside the box. But there's an awful lot that can go wrong with his style of play. Misplaced passes. Going to Jim's point, which I think is a really pertinent one, sometimes it's the fundamentals that it seems incapable of doing. A ball comes into you at pace, control it, turn and shoot. Instead, it seems like control it. One of the frustrating things I found in the first half last night is some of our players wanted to take about 15 touches in the box. It's like, you're in the box. Take 1 touch, turn and shoot. I mean, come on, that's what you need to do that. And yet it seemed to me it's like, right, control it. Oh, get out and control. Chance is gone. It was really frustrating to watch. And I agree with Jim. If that was me in the box, I'd take 20 touches and fall over, right? That's my level. These guys are the top players in the country, right? They're maybe not the top players in the world, but they must be so many levels above what us Sunday players, are capable of. So I'm looking for a slightly better level of fundamentals. When I look at Hatate's performance, all the innovation and the amazing creativity is wonderful, but for goodness sakes, do the fundamentals, right? Get the fundamentals right, and you can apply that to multiple players in the team. Engels, I thought initially, oh no, we're going to see one of the performances from Engels, which is going to frustrate us, because he was doing little flicks at certain points. He was maybe trying passes that went on in the very early point. But then what I did like is he showed application, he showed aggression. He was dragging the ball forward. His delivery started to become absolutely excellent. And I thought, okay, that's good. That's what I want to see. Do the things that you're good at doing, right? And stop trying to do the things that maybe aren't quite in your locker. And Kalmak, I mean, you talk about Kalmak not performing well this season. In my, very amateurish opinion, I think that Kalmak works better when he's not looking back towards his defence. I think Kalmak is better when he's facing forward, right? And when he doesn't have that pressure of trying to, as Brian's rightly pointed out, a point, pass it there, pass it there, pass it there. By the way, see if we're watching on TV or we're watching for the stands and we can see you point to a player, you know who else can see that? The opposition players. Stop doing it, right? Stop doing it. These are the guys you play with and you train with every single day. Stop pointing and telling them what to do. They should know what to do at this point, so stop doing that.
Maybe his hero is Peter Grant. Peter the
yeah. Well, I mean, it just drives me. It just drives me crazy when I see that. But I think Callum McGregor for me works better when he doesn't have to take on that defensive responsibility. He doesn't have to, be looking at Carter Vickers or looking at Scales and saying, "Go there, go there, go there." No, turn around. That's where the opposition goal is. That's where you can do your best work. That's where you can ping your long balls over to the strikers or the wingers. That's when you can, play those forward passes. So find a way to alleviate that pressure on Callum McGregor when he's facing his own box too often. And I thought Engels allowed him to do that a little bit last night. Engels plays quite well from deep, and he's good at kind of, he can take those long kind of arching balls from from deep and play them forward. So I thought there were really encouraging signs last night. And I agree with you. I think the balance of the midfield has been a real problem. I've looked at players like Bernardo and thought, I could see him coming in and doing a job. Doesn't seem to be able to find a way to play his way into the manager's, the manager's plans at the moment, which is a shame. But certainly the midfield last night, I thought was as at certain points of the game, they looked as controlled as I've seen them this season.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it was mainly the midfield that started most of the games last season that came back together. Is it horses for courses when it comes to that, Jim? Because Engels did play well in the Champions League last season. Some of his best performances were in Europe. Does he find it difficult in tight wee parks at Dens Park and a different kind of setup when you're playing against 10 men at the back and all that? Does it come down to that style?
I think last night was encouraging. I wouldn't go overboard on last night. Let's give it 2 or 3 games and let's see where we are after that.
Yeah.
Also, can we have a
See at the same time, Jim? At the same time, we are constantly told that we're negative towards Celtic. We've just won a game. We've shown character to come back with a goal down. We've had 2 injuries in the first half, came back from that. So I think positivity is and should be on the menu today.
Yeah, that's what I said. Last night was encouraging. I mean, I think we haven't had many encouraging performances, so last night was encouraging. I was going to say, can we have a klaxon for football cliches? Because Brian's going to run through a brick wall. Apparently. Because one I've never understood, is I would bite your hand off for a point. I've never understood that one because I'm doing nothing. I'm actually causing you physical damage by biting your hand. I'm not biting my hand, so I've never understood that one at all. So can we have a klaxon for that? Basically, encouraging last night. Long may that continue.
No, without a doubt. In terms of negativity, I go back to the YouTube comments from Martindale, the expert comments last night from Brendan Rodgers, and I just think, you know what, go and relax. Everybody has an opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's talk about the opinion. And actually, when you hear somebody offering and delivering an opinion so well, it can often turn your view around as well. So that there's not an issue with it. We've always done this. We just haven't always done it on a live stream with wee comments coming up on a screen like that. Hiding Brian's beautiful Fazog. There you go. We've got RL77. Very unusual to have a game in Europe without a series of unfortunate events. I think Jim made a great point earlier, and actually it was a feature of Brendan Rodgers' first season back as well in Europe. We were like a maybe team, just about making it. There was these moments in that first campaign, you get 2 sent off against Feyenoord away from home. You're not coming back for that, Brian. You get that goal disallowed because it's skimmed off Maeda's laces and landed at Palmer's feet. There was like a few moments of unfortunate events that turned into a really poor campaign. And that's all it can be. So you look at this campaign, you think, right, that game against Red Star Belgrade, I didn't think they were great either. We could have won that game. And then you look at the point that Jim raised earlier, Iheanacho's goal, which should have stood, 100% should have stood. And we are potentially looking at a different outcome in that game as well. But last night, we kind of bucked that trend. And I think that's why maybe this morning you're feeling like maybe that can be a turning point. But by the same token, it can be a false dawn, Brian. But I do think you've got to take as much positives as you possibly can from last night's performance. There was a bounce, there was a momentum, there was a feel-good factor certainly after the game. And going into it, I would have made a few changes. Some of them were made. Engels comes in, for example. I probably would have dropped Scales out for his performance against Dundee. I thought he was dreadful against Dundee. Comes in and he's outstanding for me last night. Not just defensively, the wee dink over the top that Jim references. He's good at that, defence splitting passes. What about his finish, though? He finished that chance like a striker. It was a brilliant finish. So composed, Brian. So going back to what I was saying to Jim there, let's give credit where it's due. Scales was excellent last night.
He absolutely was, and like as I always say, it's a game of two halves, you know. So, Claxon. No, but look, in all seriousness, and again, sort of going back to my point about the game, the Rangers game, Scales is very good that game, and I think he's someone that Rodgers feels he can trust. So I suspect that's why he's sort of getting, and you can see a pattern between Rodgers' first term in charge and second, because he seems to get to the point where he goes, right, these are the players I can trust no matter what. So if they're fit, they're playing. And Scales is one of them, and fair play to him. But there was quite a few positives. I thought Kobe Donovan, when he came on, I thought he took a while to get into it. You know, there was a few misplaced passes. He looked a bit eager, but actually that was kind of his strength as the game progressed, because then he was taking players on, he was charging, he was being proactive. And I think that, you know, guys like him and Teneke, the reason they're standing out this season isn't that I don't think Teneke's a world beater. I think if Jota's fit, he doesn't play, right? But what he is doing, he's got energy, he's got a bit of craft, wee bit about him. He's been aggressive, he's charging in. He should still try to ask for more for the fans, to be fair. But in general, he's really good and he's given us that. And I think young Donovan done that as well. They've got that kind of fearlessness that I think we lack. I think we look a bit prescribed at times. It's like almost, you know, the way Rodgers plays the football is it's very possession based, and you can see the system's working, but it's a bit like, oh, right, it's going through the motions here. Whereas Teneke, you don't really know what's going to come. And I think that's quite exciting. As I say, I think McGregor had probably his best game this season. Certainly not his best game, but his best game this season. Engels, I've always been a big fan of. I think that he was really good last season, especially in Europe. I don't think he's had a great season so far, and at times he's looked like a good player in the wrong team. But funnily enough, when AJ got injured, I said in the group chat, I went, you should just keep Engels outright at right back as like a win back, because actually I felt he was quite effective when he drifted out there, because his crossing was really good to whip in, and he's really powerful runner. And actually I think that'd been quite good there, or in like the right of a diamond. But in that sort of right mid, with Negrin cutting in and him filling, actually worked quite well. And again, Kenny, effort was there. I think he was exactly the opposite of what the players hadn't been given, because I thought he was full of endeavour, attack, effort. He was really giving it. I don't think he's got the quality, but that can be offset if he's creating chances for other people, or he's just annoying the life at defenders and they're making mistakes. Hatate wasn't great, drifted in and out. Thought Kieran was very quiet. Again, I sort of, he looks like a centre-half playing at left-back this season, as opposed to the rampaging left-back we had in the past. And I doubt that's by design, but it may be. But all in all, as I say, I think things were better. I don't think we're anywhere near a vintage performance. But I just think, given the fact we played so poorly, we've not had a great season, we suffered injuries and a goal, but we're able to have that mentality and turn it around. I think that bodes well for Tynecastle on Sunday. Which I've got to be honest about. I was concerned about a couple of weeks ago because of how we were playing. Because if you look at the season, St Mirren, late goal, Kilmarnock, late penalty, Motherwell, a mistake for the keeper gets us back in the game, draw at Ibrox, Karat. So the pattern was there. Dundee wasn't really a surprise for me. I felt it was coming. But I'm really pleased with the turnaround in attitude, because I think that's what differentiates title winners for title challengers, is the attitude and the mentality, and hopefully we've sort of rediscovered that.
Yeah, there was a criticism circling the socials just this week about when was the last time we won a big game, you know, a must-win big game. And I was thinking to myself, in fact, it might even have been John Hughes. It was Paddy McGilp and John Hughes talking about it. And I'm driving home from Glasgow listening to that, and I answered the question in my head. I didn't verbally answer it because I wasn't a car myself. Maybe I did. And what I said was League Cup final. League Cup final, right? And then they caveated, if that's the word, it by saying in 90 minutes, not on penalties. And I thought, oh, it's been a long time since we won a big game then. And it has been. So last night, was it a big game? Well, European game for me is always big. Sunday's a big game. And I think Sunday, it's like you step up. You've got this, we talk about mentality. Jim was sick of hearing me talking about mentality and culture during the COVID season. We talk about this winning mentality, and it's about, we've touched on McGregor and Tierney. What do I want from McGregor and Tierney? I want them to be leaders, mature performances, solid. I think that's what they were last night. I agree with Brian. He wasn't brilliant. Tierney wasn't vintage up and down the wing and all that kind of stuff. Donovan done more of that going into the second half. But they were mature, and they played as leaders, and they were solid for me. And if that's what we're going to get at the moment until everything settles down, I'll be happy with that. But I want to touch on Donovan because we go on about players not getting an opportunity at Celtic coming through the academy. Donovan looks raw, right? But what I loved about him last night is that energy to overlap and underlap constantly all night, right? Up and down that line. There's a comment in the comment section saying he's maybe not been tested defensively. I take that. But see, as an offensive force, Chris, right? Nygren, it took Nygren longer to realise what was going on, and he wasn't playing the balls in behind the defender. 2 or 3 times, Donovan overlapped and underlapped. He wasn't getting the service. Yep. When he does get it, he loves pinging that ball in. He loves, he gets an assist. He loves it, getting that ball in. I think that the energy we're talking about, the naivety sometimes of youth coming in and breaking rules and causing a bit of chaos and all that kind of stuff, that's what Donovan brings to the table. He's absolutely the second choice at the moment behind AJ. And I love Ralston, but he's dropped down to 3rd place for me, Chris.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think Kobe Donovan is, he's a player that's going to require a bit of patience. But I think players will develop at the quickest rate when they are playing amongst other top players or first team players. If we want Kobe Donovan to get to first team level and really establish himself, he's going to need minutes in the team. And what I like about the kid is he came on last night. It was an enforced substitution with AJ. Nobody would have expected or wanted that to happen. He comes in and he doesn't look overawed. He doesn't look scared. He doesn't look like a player that's the kind of deer in the headlights. He's in, he knows his job, and he looks for me like a player who's trying to do everything he possibly can to play his role well, impress the manager and the fans, and show that he belongs. And look, he doesn't get everything right. He's got that rawness. But the more he plays, the more players get used to playing with him in the team, the more he gets used to playing with the players like Nygren, the established first-team players. They'll start to build up that understanding. And he'll start to recognise these are the things that I should be doing in the game. These are the things that maybe I shouldn't do as much. Maybe that's I'm losing possession by doing that, or I'm not. That's not the best outlet for the rest of the team. So he'll start to learn what's important within his role. He'll start to understand what the manager's expectations are. But he'll also be reacting to the fans. The fans will be. They react to their voices. If they see a young player galloping down the side, the way we used to enjoy watching KT do, Kobe Donovan will be responding to that as well and saying, I'm getting a reaction here. I'm going to do more of that. So I think it's brilliant to see him coming through. I would never want it to happen at the expense of AJ's injury, right? That's AJ. We're all very familiar with what he brings to the team. And you mentioned leaders earlier with KT and Calmac. AJ, for me, falls into that bracket as well. He's not only a very talented player on the park, he's a leader. So you lose that element with AJ, having to drop out through injury. But what Kobe Donovan can bring, I think he's a good example of why we shouldn't be afraid to bring young, hungry players into the team. And we shouldn't necessarily always have to wait until that's an enforced change. Maybe Kobe Donovan can be the benchmark for a lot of the younger players to come through. You say, look, you show the right level of application, you show the right level of maturity and professionalism, you'll get your chance. But it's not just about getting onto that park. It's about getting onto that park and showing that you belong there and you can stay there and you can actually play to the level required. So, yeah, for me, no, I wouldn't denigrate Ralston. I think Ralston's been a great servant to the club. But if I was to look at the choice between him and Kobe Donovan at the moment, I'm more excited about what Colby Donovan can bring to the team.
You make a good point about how that breathes a bit of life and belief into the academy players, Chris. The minute somebody comes through and actually does that, they become a shining beacon for all these guys playing in the B team and below. And just yesterday, for anybody who missed it, a wee bit of info on that. Apparently, Sean Maloney's making big changes for the academy. There are going to be some personnel changes actually within the academy at the end of this season. So more on that later, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, they do have a plan. Colby Donovan comes in and he's getting quite a lot of good plaudits coming through on the comment section. Andy Lee says, "Afternoon, troops. Hope you're all good after last night's brilliant performance. Where has that been all season?" Smell the glove. Annoyed about the injuries for the far bigger game on Sunday. I want to talk about who plays where. It seems, Jim, that we're all happy with Colby Donovan at right back. We've already spoken about the centre forward maybe having to be Kenny if May does no fit. But who do you play in place of CCV? Now, we have the originator and founding member of the Dane Murray CSC in our midst today. And he obviously was on the bench last night. I remember the Atalanta, not ideal playing two lefties on, left and right. But I remember the Atalanta game, Trusty and Scales were excellent that night. It's going to be a different challenge, of course. Is it a simple choice for Rodgers? Does he just bring in Murray to replace CCV?
I would go with the most experienced players. I would go with Olsen. I'd go with Olsen at right back Sunday for his experience, because we know what that first 20 minutes will be like at Tynecastle, and I think Donovan has got a bit of a future ahead of him. But for Sunday, I would play Olsen. I'd be considering maybe playing KT at sweeper and bringing Sriracha to play at left back again, just for the experience of that. I think KT seems a bit muted this season. It doesn't seem as if he's enjoying himself that much. He just looks a bit dour, So for Sunday, I'm all for experience. That's why I would go with Ralston, Sriracha, and maybe bring KT in at the back. I know that's two left-footed players at the back, but I think it needs must, and that's what I'd go for at the back.
It's interesting that, because we're talking form rather than experience, Brian, and we're getting excited about Donovan, and I think we're right to get excited about him. But Jim raises a good point. Tynecastle's, it's an atmosphere. It's often been described as a toxic atmosphere. And a lot of players who come to Scottish football reckon it's one of the best atmospheres. Obviously, they're not listening to the songs that they sing when Hearts are playing Celtic. What do you think of that as a point that Jim makes? And who do you play instead of CCV?
So I think Jim's probably right. I suspect that it will be Trusted that will play, because I think if you look at the dynamics of the centre halves, Scales is good on the ball, but no great defensively at times. Carter Vickers an absolute rock defensively, sometimes no great in the ball. You flip that when it's Murray and Trusty, because Trusty's no great in the ball, but he's very, very good defensively. Murray's pretty good in the ball. He's still pretty good defensively as well, but that's the kind of dynamic. So I don't imagine you'll play Scales and Murray together, both try to drive out for the back, especially at times. So I suspect it will be Trusty and Scales, just for that experience. What I would like to see is, so Derek McInnes, whenever he plays, Celtic always sort of goes man for man, and he knows that, or I imagine he would know, we've not done great against back fives. However, what I would do if I was Rodgers, and I'd switch it up, and I'd have a 3-5-2 almost. So I'd have Trusty, Murray. Oh no, sorry, Scales, Murray, and Tierney as a back three. If I was going for the back three, Sriracha left wing back, Colby right wing back. I played Tanecki just off Kenny, give him a sort of free roll and let him roam, and you've got Engels and the standard midfield in there. But I suspect you stick with 4-3-3, in which case I think it will be Schmeichel, Donovan, Trusty, Scales, Tierney, Hitati, Engels, McGregor, Tanecki, Negrin, and Kenny. That's the team I think he'll pick. But I say, if it was me, know that I know much about much, I would change it about a wee bit. And the thing about starting with Trusty is, as I've always said, he's got great feet for a big man. So that's something you need to remember as well. Another cliche there for you, Jim.
Another cliche, yes. The other thing I would say there, Brian, is he did change it at Dundee, didn't he, at half time? So that it might be fresh in his mind. That number 10 or the guy just playing off the number 9, Brian, Balikwisha can play that role. So can Nygren. How do you think Nygren played last night, guys? Because I actually think, looking back, Kenny should and could on another night have got a hat trick. So could Nygren, by the way. See, just before he scores that goal, I was calling him for everything. See, at half time, right, I was on myself last night, so I decided I'm just going to go live on the second half. I'm just going to do a watch along. Why not? Right, because the game kicked off a wee bit quicker than I expected it to, and I couldn't be bothered changing everything up on StreamYard. So I was just sitting here having a wee chat to myself like I did in the car the other day. Some people might want to call the doctor on me, right? And I was actually saying Nygren, he needs to be more decisive. He's had some great chances last night. I thought he really did. There was a back post there. There was 2 headers, wasn't there? And I just thought, and then there was the chance 6 yards out, and I'm thinking that it's not going to be his night, and then he scores the goal. But I don't know if he's a right winger, Chris. I think, he's shown this season, right, that he contributes. He scored 5 goals. He's got 4 assists, 15 games, right? So he's contributing. But I don't know if he's a right winger. Every time he gets the ball, he wants to cut inside. He doesn't have the pace. Someone actually said on one of my group chats this morning, and I don't know because I've never seen him playing, although I've written about him, that he reminds him of Vic Davidson, Jim. Vic Davidson was a very elegant, skillful player, but he didn't have the turn of pace, and he wasn't very hard as a footballer. Jim, you certainly would have seen him second time round, Vic Davidson.
Yeah. I don't see the comparison. No, he's. I think when everyone's fit, I think Nygren's a sub, maybe an impact player. I was trying to think, was it Motherwell he came on, or was it a sub? I thought he changed the game then. So I think, he's never a right winger, and you kind of heart sank last night when you saw he's playing the right. But he got himself in a lot of good positions and could have scored 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah.
I like him. He's maybe not as good as I thought he was going to be, but he certainly contributed this season. And but because of the injury situation, he has to start on Sunday. And again, right wing, but it's not his best position.
No, he's not a Celtic winger. I know that some wingers at other clubs cut inside and all the rest of it, and it was a move favoured by Nicholas Kuhn actually to great effect. But he had the pace, didn't he, Chris? That was the difference with Kuhn. Nygren doesn't have that burst of pace. But I do agree with Jim. I think he's been a useful player for us this season. I just don't know if he's found the best role for him yet.
No, I'm gonna sound like as I am a regular Football Manager player here, but I think when I look at Nygren, that was the same as Jim. When I saw he was on right wing last night, I was like, oh no, because I don't think he's got the traditional attributes for a winger. The pace or the ability to go past the player. What I think he does have is I think he's very good at finding pockets of space. I think he reads the game well around him. And I think he's quite good at just he kind of drifts away from his marker, which I quite like. And suddenly, you find that he's in a good position. So he's very, very. I think he's probably better off the ball than he is on the ball, if that makes sense. He's one of those guys that always seems to be available for a pass and then can link the play. And I thought initially, when AJ was playing, he was doing that really well. AJ was actually going past him. He was playing more the role of the kind of overlapping winger because Nygren was kind of drifting inside and they were doing that sort of triangle type move, which I liked. I think he's. You've got to remember he's only just came to the club, right? He's only just came to the club. He's only just came to the country. We talk about having patience for other players like Engels, etc. We should say the same thing of Nygren, even though he's very much an established internationalist and has got quite a decent pedigree. I think he's still trying to find his feet at the club, but he's contributing. He's chipped in with a few goals. He's getting with a few assists. He's certainly in amongst the chances, and I think he brings that attacking threat. So I think there's more to come from him. I don't think he's the answer at right wing until January. I think we still need to possibly look at Maeda or Ian Other coming in to do that until we get the chance to recruit again. But I would certainly say that I think he's a player for me that is in the first team just about on merit rather than by default at the moment. Because I look at who else is on the bench and within the squad, and I don't see anyone else that's really able to contribute what he brings to the team. So I think he's a good player. I'd like to see a bit more from him, but I would certainly play him. I would certainly play him on Sunday.
If we're looking at pace, because apparently that was what the analogy was all about. It was trying to get players to play at a certain tempo, and the players aren't at that level. If we're looking at pace, he doesn't have that And I don't think Iheanacho's got it when he plays, but he's a guy for me. He's an operator that give him the ball in the box. He's got the touch. He can finish. Tuneki's got a bit of pace about him. Kenny's got a bit of pace about him, which might work in his favour as well. So, again, I'll go back to Shin Yamada, and I agree with Jim. We're not going to throw anybody in out of cold storage. And I actually think that's probably what has happened last night, mainly with AJ, but also Iheanacho's not played a lot of football in the last 3 years. So, you might think he should be fit by now, but he's not played a lot of football really over the last 3 years, and muscle injuries happen. Like, if you've not been at peak performance levels, I would have my concerns about Trusty in that respect. He's not started the game this season, Austin Trusty. So for all the experience and the skills that he brings, is he fit? And I don't mean, right, okay, he's got no injuries. Is he match fit? The answer is probably no. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved today. It was nice, positive. There was a wee bounce. That's what Celtic does to you, ladies and gents, right? So 1900 plus strong, live on a Friday afternoon. We will be back tonight. That's not even a wee tin of Red Bull. That's one of the big ones, eh? That's like the size of Special Brew tin that you've got there, Brian. Dearie me.
As a can of Special Brew. It's Friday after all. Just...
yeah, you've got a cover. You've got a cover.
McEwen's extra.
On the phone to Brian's work.
I know. It's early. It's a bit early.
I know, just in case any fuck is watching it as Red Bull.
Thank you, everybody. Exactly. You could sponsor if you want. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. If you want to come and see us with Chris Sutton, he's certainly not in Acsom's naughty step. Make of that what you will. He will be with us on Friday next week in Greenock. There are 23 tickets available. The link is under the video. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you to Chris, Jim, and Brian for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.